The path of Cosmo, a halo car of Mazda, began way back in the 60s when the whole world was captivated by the so-called space race, and this epoch-making event had a huge cultural impact, one that is noticeable in just about everything that came out of that era, from music, films, and literature to fashion and, in our case, even automobiles, as the design of the L10 Mazda Cosmo was clearly influenced by such cultural fascination. Being the first ever Mazda to feature a rotary engine, the Cosmo became the originator of Mazda's Rotary saga. And today, we will talk about the final generation of the Cosmo. Let's begin, shall we? It all starts with a high-tech concept car called the Mazda MX-03, created back in 1985 as Mazda's Tour de Force, featuring things such as the turbocharged three-rotor engine, all-wheel drive, four-wheel steering, yoke instead of a steering wheel, and a claimed 0 to 60 acceleration in just 4.6 seconds. And while that concept never ended up going into mass production, it found its influence in the new Cosmo, presented at the Tokyo Motor Show in 1989 as a 2+2 Grand Tourer, now sold under Mazda's recently unveiled premium brand called Eunos. And the car itself is to enter production in 1990, built on the new JC platform, hence the name Series JC. As I said, the Eunos Cosmo is a Grand Tourer, implying it combines best of both worlds, high comfort of a luxurious business class sedan, and high performance of a sports car. And even though the first generation of the Cosmo clearly drew some inspiration from the European GTs of the time, the JC was designed in a style that looks unique and characteristic to Mazda. But the stunning looks did not end outside, as, at least in my opinion, the interior still looks very futuristic to this day, with big leather bucket seats, a symmetric dashboard that caves in, and the big center console that flows to the back and becomes a spacer between the rear seats. Now that we've figured out the high comfort of a luxury sedan part, it's time to talk about the high performance of a sports car. And on such terms, the new Cosmo was definitely no slacker, as it was offered with two different engines to choose from, either a 1.3-liter two-rotor 13B REW, the same engine that became available in the RX-7 FD only after 1992, or a 2-liter three-rotor 20B REW. As for the abbreviation at the end of the engine names, it stood for Rotary Engine with Double Turbochargers. In Mazda's engine nomenclature, the letter W stood for double, implying that both of the engines were sequentially turbocharged. The twin-rotor 13B developed 230 horsepower and 217 pound-feet of torque. As for the 20B, it developed 276 horsepower and 300 pound-feet of torque. Or at least, that's what Mazda had to state due to the gentleman's agreement of the Japanese car manufacturers, when in reality, the 20B produced about 300 horsepower. For the same reason, the maximum speed of the Eunos Cosmo was electronically limited to 112 miles per hour. However, with the limiters removed, two-rotor variants could accelerate up to 146 miles per hour, while the three-rotor ones peaked at 158. You see, rotary engines have some clear advantages over the piston ones. Despite their relatively small volume, they can develop a lot of power, rev up to higher RPMs, and yet maintain a very smooth power delivery, and no less smoother ride experience. Just so you understand, the legendary Mazda 787B race car, which participated in the 24 Hours of Le Mans during 1990 and 1991, and even won the race during the latter year, was equipped with a naturally aspirated four-rotor engine, and with a volume of only 2.6 liters, it produced up to 900 horsepower. However, rotary engines also have a whole lot of disadvantages, ranging from low fuel efficiency and higher emissions to shorter service life and substantial maintenance costs. But still, we're talking about a personal luxury Grand Tourer, and the average buyer of one is expected to afford all of the expensive vagaries of a car like this. Speaking of expensive, if this car was sold today, it would set you back about $55,000. And we're talking about the base configuration too, as with all the additional options included, the price will round up to $103,000, thus making Eunos Cosmo one of the most expensive Japanese vehicles of its time. And even after the price tag as well as the service costs, the expenses of the Cosmo were not over yet, since Japan had implemented some regulations regarding car dimensions, and the Japanese citizens who were driving an oversized car were required to pay annual taxes, and with the Cosmo being 190 inches long and 70 inches wide, in a country that is known for its compactness, it was considered a full-on land yacht. That was also one of the reasons for its low sales numbers, but more on that a little later. The JC Cosmo even managed to set a couple of records. For example, the Eunos Cosmo was the first and to this day the only mass-produced car to feature a three-rotor engine. It was also the world's first car to be equipped with a GPS system. Now that we speak of electronic equipment, it's fair to say that the Cosmo was ahead of its time, as it was equipped with a colored CRT touchscreen that allowed the driver to control the GPS navigation, climate control, as well as the radio, CD player, and even a cell phone. Although the Cosmo was a vehicle meant purely for the Japanese domestic market, it was still exported through the Eunos sales channel, and at one point was even planned to be exported to the US through Mazda's cancelled luxury sub-brand called Amati. And so, the Cosmo appeared in other countries like the Australia, New Zealand, and the UK, due to the majority of these cars being built with right-hand drive, but in rare cases you could even find left-hand drive examples of the Cosmo. To sum it up, Eunos Cosmo was produced until September 1995, with a total of 8,875 cars sold. Most of them were built with two-rotor 13B engines, and three-rotor versions are considered even more rare and hence more valuable. Needless to say that a car like this is considered as a genuine collectible nowadays. During its lifetime, Cosmo used to be a sports car, a mid-size sedan, and before its departure, it even became a personal luxury grand tourer. And despite its significant imprint on the automotive industry, I certainly believe that this car is still often overlooked. Thank you for watching, and if you like this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss the newest videos. See you next week.